I get the booze, I get the Green Bay sucks chants, and I listen to it. I'm like, oh come on, guys, be louder. I love that stuff. It got to a point, certain parts where people were trying to take my Chiefs head off, and I
Of
was like,
course.
I don't really know about that. Breaking point essentially was, I want to say it was in the third quarter, a Bears fan who was drunk grabbed my cheese head, ripped it, and then threw it completely out of my section, out of the nosebleeds, over the guard railing.
Welcome to Tales from the Tundra, a show that captures one team's history told through the eyes of the fan. My name is Ben, and today I am talking with Caden. Caden is a big-time Packers fan who is originally from Illinois. During our conversation, we talk about what it was like moving up to Green Bay, his content that he creates surrounding the Packers, some of the cool things that have happened because of that, and honestly, so much more. I hope you guys had a great past couple weeks with the draft and stuff going on. It was super busy for me, so I am happy to be back and getting back into the show. This episode was recorded prior to the draft, but I did have the privilege of getting a chance to meet Caden at the draft, and that was awesome as well. Caden's a great person, and I know you're going to enjoy this episode. So without further delay, let's get into it. This is episode 9 of Tales from the Tundra with Caden. Growing up in Illinois with a parent that is a diehard Bears fan makes it very difficult to become a Packers fan, but that's just what Caden did.
All my friends throughout elementary, middle school, and high school, all diehard Bears fans. And essentially, I technically get my fandom from my dad's side of the family because they're up north. He grew up up north in Menominee, Michigan, so they were kind of Lions and Packers fans, but he grew up more of a Packer fan.
Sure.
And my mom's side of the family, of course, all diehard Bears fans. They love it. And the joke I love to make and tell people is essentially when, my mom gave birth to me, the doctor took me away, cleaned me off. And as he was bringing me back into, the room to hand me off to my mother, my dad stopped the doctor and said, hold on, let me do something. And ended up putting a beanie on my head. And then the doctor then gave me with a Packer beanie to my mom. And she knew from that point forward, oh, well, there goes my chance. He's going to be a Packer fan for life. And guess what? I am.
Yeah. When did you move up here then?
I moved up here officially this just past fall. I currently attend UWGB, which is technically on the northeast side of Green Bay. And I'm currently studying business marketing there. I'm a junior. I've enjoyed the campus. I say a lot of positive things. Growing up kind of knowing that, hey, I was never really the type of person to be like, I want to go to a big D1 school or anything like that. I kind of knew that I wanted to take the more simpler route. So I did 2 years of community college down in Illinois at College of DuPage in Glen Ellen, Illinois. And then I just transferred this past fall up here to UWGB.
Very cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah, UWGB is kind of wild if whoever's listening to this has never been out there because it's kind of out by itself. You don't feel like a college should be out there, and
it's a very big, like I would say it's in general a commuter school, but at the very least it's on a huge forest reserve. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you it's like the campus itself is massive. There's a lot of field, a lot of stuff you can do. My favorite thing constantly is all the wildlife that's on campus and the alerts they send out here and there to be like, hey guys, try not to get attacked by the wild turkeys that are roaming around campus, or make sure not to hit any of the wildlife there, because that has happened and it's very funny.
I love that they send out
to the people that happen to, but at the very least, just like, hey, consideration.
Right. It's funny that they send out alerts like, but I believe it. There's a lot of like beautiful walking trails out there, and it's a lot of wildlife because it is out so desolate parts. So you've been in town now, you said, since last fall. So really 9 months at this point?
I mean,
6 months, I guess.
Yeah, it's been about like 6, 7. I mean, technically at the end of my community college era, I technically moved up here like this past summer, but like starting university, getting settled down and going to a whole bunch of stuff was this past fall, kind of doing. And it's kind of been more like the past year, kind of knowing and getting to do more stuff. Because that's how I was my whole life when I was down in Illinois, where I was constantly oh, like the Power Pack Junior Club, I want to do events there. Oh, I can't because it's, so far off. It's a 3.5 hour drive from Naperville all the way up to Green Bay on a solid day where there's no traffic in Rosemont or you don't have any traffic in Milwaukee. And you have that long 1.5 hour drive where it's just fields and cows from North Milwaukee all the way to Green Bay. And then maybe Sheboygan, there's some stuff happening, but it's very desolate. But growing up, I constantly was like, I wanted to do stuff. I wanted to attend events, but all the fun and cool stuff was happening in Green Bay or in our drive. So, I did have Northwood Inn in downtown Chicago. Both those people love that place. I've watched 2 games there before. And then last year, I actually went to one of their events and got to meet Romeo Dobbs and Rashawn Gary, especially Rashawn Gary's mom, who was very funny, very cool type of person. I actually brought my brother-in-law, who's a Lions fan, to the event, and he absolutely loved Rashawn Gary's mom, and especially Rashawn Gary. He was like, you know what? I guess I am a fan of them. And I'm like, good. At least I succeeded there.
Right. So as you're growing up in Bears country, then I grew up on the other side of Wisconsin, so in more Vikings area. I was still in Wisconsin, but there's a lot of Vikings fans. But because of that, I cannot stand the Vikings at all. Like, I want them to be miserable forever. My brother's a Vikings fan. My dad's a Vikings fan. I want that franchise to be miserable forever. Do you feel that with the Bears because you were surrounded by them so much, or is it more still a respect of the rivalry because they are such a historic franchise and not an embarrassment like the Vikings?
I mean, it really helped the fact that the Bears were never really good when I was growing up. So
That's
it
true.
helped a lot. I mean, the only year where they were actually really solid was 2018, which was my freshman year of high school, in which that entire year did not help freshman year of high school and the Bears being good. My overall self-esteem and standard was completely out the drain, was just absolutely terrible. I would say, like, feelings wise, I think there is that mutual respect, most historic rivalry, probably one of the best rivalries in all sports throughout history. So there isn't really that much resentment or hate. I don't really like Vikings fans, even though over the past few years, I've made some friends who are Vikings fans who are decent and good, well-off people. But truthfully, I've never really liked the Vikings, and I've only had a few things with Bears fans here or there. One of my favorite stories I do like to tell about hating Bears fans is literally that to be preseason of 2023. I went to the Bears versus Titans preseason game with a bunch of my Bears friends. We're all in a fantasy league. And, I showed up just saying, oh, why not? It'd be funny to show up in all my Green Bay Packer gear for a preseason game where the Packers aren't even playing in the game.
Yeah.
So I show up there, rock up to Soldier Field. I'm wearing all yellow, decked up, have a cheese head on top of my head. And I walk in the stadium and, because there's 14 of us, and we're all college students. Of course, we're sitting all the way up in the nosebleeds,
Of course.
even when it's a preseason game.
Yep.
Simple as that. I wear myself. I get the booze. I get the Green Bay sucks chants. And, I listen to it. I'm like, oh, come on, guys, be louder. I love that stuff. And what I thought was really, really hilarious is that everyone just pointing, screaming. And it got to a point in certain parts where people were trying to take my cheese head off. And I was like, I don't really know about that. The breaking point essentially was, I want to say it was in the third quarter. A Bears fan who was drunk grabbed my cheese head, ripped it, and then threw it completely out of my section, out of the nosebleeds, over the guard railing. And I went up to one of the security people saying, hey, is there any possibility you could do something or get it back? And the guy just straight up just said, no. Wow. And I was like, well, that's no help. But luckily, positive enough, a few minutes later, a little small Bears fan with my ripped up cheese head comes walking up to me and gives it back to me saying, here. And I'm like, okay, well, at least there's some.
Yeah, at least there's some
sweetheart there. And then the cherry on top of everything was, I wasn't as upset or wild. And the Bears won their preseason game against the Titans, and Bears fans were, you know how they were that last season with Justin Fields.
Super Bowl, yeah,
working all the way. My favorite thing was leaving the stadium with all my friends, and they're still giving me shit. And I noticed that there's a Packer fan with a Rodgers jersey on, absolutely drunk out of his mind, and is losing it when people are calling him names and so forth and screaming at him. And I had all my Bears friends say, they gave me credit for this, being like, at least you can take all the shit talking and all of that and won't get all riled up like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, that's
banter I'm not going to be throwing fists and so forth over there. I'm like, I'm a little upset that my cheesehead got ripped up and thrown out technically in the stadium, and the security didn't want to do anything about it there. But when people are screaming and doing whatever, I'm like, yeah, it's your guys' home field. I don't care. It's also funny
That's part of
because
it.
we're in your head rent free.
Right.
I mean,
for sure. Yeah, it is a little. I mean, it's one thing to like the banter and stuff, but to actually like destroy property of yours is a pretty.
That's where I was like, the Green Bay sucks chance. Oh, I was like, oh, this is great to hear in person, especially leaving the stadium. People were still yelling that stuff, and I'm like, we aren't even playing. It's pretty much like, I feel it's a tradition. After every Bears win, they're gonna do that, which I'm like, you know what? Good for you guys. You guys have something great.
Right.
But truthfully, yeah, that was my one thing negative wise about Soldier Field. And speaking of Soldier Field, I also did a private tour there, which I never realized you could actually buy tickets to tour Soldier Field.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, the city of Chicago, through like a third-party website, does like tours for only specific times of the year, which is like, I want to say like February and March, and then like some parts of the summer and fall.
Just
so
like
I was like,
season periods.
Yeah, just off season for whatever. And I'm like, technically it's off season every time at Soldier Field because they're never going to do anything good or make the playoffs. But so I was like, oh, I've done the tour at Lambeau Field a couple of times. I love how it is. So I was like, let me see how Soldier Field is. And it was my last spring there. So I went with one of my friends who was a Buccaneers fan, huge Tom Brady fan, was really happy, who came with. And we went, and it was really cool to learn about the history. The tour guide was a former, I think he was a retired cop and firefighter giving the tour. So I was like, that was really cool and interesting. He was like growing up, and he said he'd gone to Soldier Field and Bears games. And that was really nice to like hear. I was like, oh, it's really cool. And he gave me a little crap for, I wore my Aaron Rodgers Packer jersey because, at that point, Aaron Rodgers owns Soldier Field. Even when he's on the Jets, it don't matter. He's a Bears owner. And some of the more interesting things about that specific tour, which I wish I were recorded, I did make a video just based on photos, but the guy was like, no filming, was kind of seeing like the tunnels and how they all work. And the funniest thing that the guy said was that when we were actually on the Bears sideline and they're talking about the grass, and I was like, Matt Eberflus wanted like brand new synthetic grass installed to Soldier Field. He was like, none of that dirt with paint up there in Green Bay. And when he said that, I was like, really taking the cheap shots. But what I wish I would have said to him was, by the way, that dirt with paint has 13 titles to its name.
Right.
I'm like, that's more than you guys.
It's always interesting to like throw those jabs when you've had such, I wouldn't even call it a rivalry where it's at currently. It's been so one-sided.
Oh yeah.
To try to throw those shots just feels like, I don't know.
It was out of nowhere when I overheard it, and I was like, okay, that's a solid jab, but I should have said it back to him. I just was like, at that point in time, not even thinking. I was more just admiring, being like, let me get the photos on Soldier Field about I'm wearing my Aaron Rodgers jersey at Soldier Field on the sideline. When is any Packer fan going to be able to do this? And then my favorite thing was walking into the away locker room. And they have a whole bunch of NFL jerseys fan up in the lockers, and they had an Aaron Rodgers jersey in one of the lockers.
Weird.
And he was like, and I'm like, that's like kind of respectful, but I mean, I want to say they had Rodgers, they had Tom Brady, they had Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, they had Kirk Cousins, they had a few good like quarterback names in the actual locker room, and I was like, okay, that's. I mean, yeah, just a little, but they respect to who, and they were all behind plexiglass, and getting to see all that, and then being like, go off to the corner, like, oh, here's all the players where they do the wrap ups and so forth for before the game, and I'm like, okay, that's very unique. And then we got to see the media room where they do all like pinpoints of here's the broadcast, here's how it's going to work. And then we got to see one of the luxury club suiting area, which is like hundreds of dollars. That's like, I was like, this is nice, but I'm like, comparing to Lambeau Field, I was like, I feel like not as, it still needs a little bit of upgrade, but I said overall, I was like, this was very cool. I'm glad I did this. And I was like, I don't think a lot of people know that you could actually
I had no idea.
Soldier Field. So
I would gladly tour any field at least once. I
Well,
know.
that's what I said that completely because I was like, if there's any like chance to visit a field and do tours, and I think the Lions and Vikings have something similar to
Yeah,
that.
I
And I
think the
want to say,
Vikings do for sure in their
I
new
think the
stadium.
Vikings do, and I want to say the Vikings normally they like theirs is actually like I want to say probably is as good as the Packers one. I can't rate it. That's like jogging back from memory, but I saw it and I was like, I might as well do it. And I want to say tickets were
Yeah,
only like $30 a person
that's not
for
bad at
adults.
all.
So I was like, that's what I said. I was like, that's not bad at all. And that's to go around the stadium, just see general seating. That was to go down in the tunnels, get a photo on the sideline against the turf. That was to see the away locker room, the media booth, and then go up in the luxury suites. And then just, I think we made like one or two other stops. I can't remember
Mm.
exactly, but it was actually really good. I was like, oh, this was actually a really solid tour. So
Somewhat similar to the Packers then, as far as what they're showing you and just taking you
yeah, for
around
what
the
they're
stadium.
generically showing around the
Yeah,
NFL stadium and so forth. And
yeah,
I was like, no, this is actually really good.
that's awesome. So, is that preseason game the only time you've been to Soldier Field for a
So
game?
I've been to Soldier Field technically, what we're going to count 3 times previously. My mom has the special honor of saying that she took me to my first ever regular season game, which was a 2014 Bears versus Lions regular season game.
Okay,
As I stated previously, my older sister's husband is a diehard Lions fan, so we went to that game specifically for him, and
that's
also
cool.
my mom being a Bears fan.
Yeah.
And then the other time it would be that preseason game. And then I went to Aaron Rodgers' last ever game at Soldier Field in which he won against the Bears when he had that, like, I think it was a 10-point fourth quarter comeback.
Hmm.
That was very much fun. I watched that all the way up in the nosebleeds and I think row 50 something. And yeah, when he came back,
How was that experience then being at an actual Packers Bears game and the banter, and was it like
at
amplified more or
So
were people so defeated?
Soldier Field, there's a lot of tension. It is no, like there's a few friendly pointers, but when the Bears were up at the end of the fourth quarter, I mean, I remember going to get food in the concession stands. I had a little kid come up to me and say, "Scoreboard, scoreboard." Um, when the game ended, I saw that little kid again, and he was very sad.
You didn't go up to
Um,
him and just say
I
scoreboard, scoreboard.
no, I would never. No, that's not the thing I would do. But yeah, I think Packers Bears game at Soldier Field is very high tension. I think Bears fans are just sick and tired and do not like
Understandably so.
losing aspect. And to that point, as I said, they hadn't won since 2018,
Yeah.
and I think and so forth. And then as for at Lambeau Field, which I've done, which luckily I didn't go to the Bears Packers game at the end of 2020, at the end of 2024 season. I went to the end of the 2023 one where that was where we clinched our first playoff win with Jordan Love. Well, technically first playoff berth with Jordan Love.
Yep.
And that was a lot more friendly and so forth. And I guess like, hey, a lot more chillax vibe, but I guess I can be a little biased to the fact that I'm a Packer fan. I love Lambeau Field a lot more than Soldier Field and Wrestling Bears. For what I could tell, especially the fact that one of my friends who's a diehard Bears fan, Jackson, who actually went to that game, he was like, and I told him, I was like, yeah, because he was asking me about Lambeau Field, in which I tell everyone, I'm like, everyone who's a generic NFL fan has to, if it not attend a Green Bay Packer game, at least go visit Lambeau Field
Yeah.
once because of how
Mhm.
unique and how like it is just a stadium in the middle of a neighborhood. And it is, and it's really nice. I tell my friends this, and when he went to the game and I told him all these things and he was like, oh, we'll see. And he said that he enjoyed every aspect of it. He's like, I hate that the Packers won. I wish the Bears would have won. And he said that his only gripe was the fact that we were chanting Bears still suck out of the stadium. And he was like, and I did have a few fans say some negative stuff to me, but he said overall, he's like, okay, yeah, it is a pretty cool and unique stadium. And he said that he would love to be back as soon as possible, which he would have gone to the January game this past January. But had some stuff happen, and I'm like, I say it to anyone completely. Please attend a Green Bay Packer game at Lambeau Field. It is one of the best experiences in sports that I think you can have in your entire life because of how friendly, nice, open everyone. I mean, I've seen it multiple times where I'm there by myself. I go to games by myself, and that's a unique experience to talk about. And people are will welcome arms, talk thoroughly, and chatter up. Even if you're an opposing fan, it's all friendly, all fun and games, and they will literally offer you to buy you a drink if you want. It's literally like, who in these rows wants a drink? I'll go right now. And
that doesn't surprise me.
So weird. Oh no, it's so weird.
Hey, it's Ben. Sorry to jump in and interrupt, but I wanted to draw last episode's Nicolay Law giveaway winner. Before I do, I want to say a huge thank you to Nicolay Law for making these giveaways possible each and every week. So thank you so much, Nicolay Law. If you do find yourself injured, get Nicolay. All right, without delaying any further, let's draw this winner. If you've never entered for these before and it's your first time listening, later on in the episode, I'm going to give you the word of the week or the phrase of the week and how to enter, so you can enter for this week's episode. But today's winner is, we have George D. So George, I will be reaching out to you via email, but thank you so much to everyone who took the time to enter. Congratulations, George. Let's see what you won. George picked himself up a signed, it's going to get there. Yes, it did. John Kuhn 8x10. So thank you once again, George. So you go to a lot of games just solo, just finding tickets last second?
So what I do, especially for content, is and just enjoying is that I buy tickets last minute. My family are season ticket holders. We're in section 104, row 37, if I'm correct.
Okay.
And normally we split those throughout the season to the rest of the family members, but to attend a lot of the games that I want to attend, I normally just wait last minute. And through the last 3 years, I've actually learned a lot more about like ticketing processing and which kind of apps are like the best and understanding like codes and sales. It sucks to say that after spending all that time and going through and buying tickets off multiple different sites, if you do want last minute tickets, unfortunately Ticketmaster is the best place to buy last minute. I have, even with, unless you're going to make a brand new account and use someone's code for $20 or $30 off.
Oh, sure.
It is going to be Ticketmaster as the last minute option, because some of the other sites have like third party like interaction, or you have to be like a middle negotiator, or it's still through Ticketmaster, and the time for transfer ticketing over to make sure everything's correct just takes way too long. I could say that I could probably say Ticketmaster's number one, which I hate. I don't like the Ticketmaster service. I've had so many things happen. I would say number two would probably be SeatGeek, which everyone loves codes and so forth. And I'll say, if you want to get around to best tickets and best price, I would say make a new account, use an offer, and buy tickets and so forth each week, and just throw away email. It's the best thing to do. And then I'd say third would probably be Game Time. But for ticketing specifically, and so forth, I do attend a lot of games by myself. I find it to be a lot more better of an experience. And, I normally that fan aspect of, oh, hey, going with a group of people, you have to make sure everyone's together, everyone's doing everything. As for myself, it's kind of more the, what do I want to do, want to see type of thing. And along with the fact that I'm going by myself, there's always going to be one ticket or someone saying, I want to sell just one random, and which I've had it before where it's been a group of 4 people and one person ditches out last minute and they want to sell a ticket, and I've bought that ticket before. Or, hey, we're season ticket holders and we have an extra ticket, and I've bought that before. And it's really funny because as I've sat pretty much anywhere and everywhere in the stadium except for the 700 level, just based on the fact that somehow those tickets sometimes are more expensive than lower bowl ticketing. Which
interesting. I wonder if it's because you get the bucket seat. You get the bucket seat
with the cups, and
and you get like not a bird's eye view, but you get a pretty nice view of the entire. I guess it's kind of a bird's eye, but you get the full field, and
I've done the standing room ticket once, and it's kind of the same idea. You're up there on the level of 300, and it's a really. I think they say any seat in Lambeau is a good view, no matter where you sit, even if you're up high or anywhere. It is. I said the only negative is when it's like a late September and the sun is over you on a noon game. It will shine no matter. I want to say if you're on, I can't remember. I want to say on the way side, and the sun, depending on where the sun is.
So is that the east side of the stadium?
I think so. It's
because that new end zone's the south, I believe.
Yeah, and you're going to be wanting to wear multiple levels of sunscreen, and it will glare. And that's where
you just bake for the entire game. It's just miserable.
It is bad. Those are probably like, I would say those experiences are probably worse than it's negative 10 degrees outside and my hands are freezing.
I
The
would agree with
sunbathing,
you.
I would say, is 100 times worse. But also, I should think it's just the fact that I've been up here and Midwest weather, cold weather wise, I've gotten used to. But like hot southern weather, it's like 100 degrees on the thermostat. I do not want to go outside.
Well, dude, then you're getting the cement that's baking up. Right?
Oh
The
yeah, well,
cement's hot and the bleachers,
the
everything's just like
bleachers are hot and it's really bad. I mean, I went to two of the home games. One was the home opener versus the Colts and watching Malik Willis play. And I sat on the right behind the away side's benches in like I think row 6 or 7, and I got a ticket for like 100. Because remember, this was like the week, 2 weeks after Jordan Love got hurt, and everyone's like, "Well, there goes our season." And I was like, I literally said to myself, row 6 behind the away bench for $100. Sign me up. I don't care if I'm watching Malik Willis. That's perfect. I enjoy that. And I remember, it was I think like 90 something degrees, and I wore sunglasses. I wore multiple, and especially with the ball head and having like no hair on my body, I gotta layer up in multiple layers of sunscreen. Even then, I burnt and baked. And luckily, the free giveaway item that they gave at that game was towels. And I threw one over my head, and it looked like it was yellow, and so it looked like a piece of melted cheese on my head. That one of my friends told me. And I was like, it was so hot. And then the other one was the whiteout game, winter warning, which, mid to late October, you would think, somewhat solid time. And it's like 80 degrees. And I'm like, thank God we are wearing all white, but I baked so heavily.
I believe it.
And I was there with some of my family members, and some of them, you could say, getting drunk and being just sitting in the sun is not a great combination at all. And I could just tell people were not happy about just being just absolutely hot. I mean, it also didn't help that the Packers were a close game in it the entire time.
Yeah.
There's like, please just come up clutch. Thank goodness for Brandon McManus. But I could say from those experiences and so forth, I'm like, even then, view-wise, absolutely amazing. And yeah, I go to games by myself. I know a lot of people judge it a little. They're like, when I go and I show up, they're like, you're here by yourself? Or they're kind of like, wait, you came here by yourself? I'm like, yeah. And they find it interesting and it's enjoyable. But I'm like, for what I do, for what I post online, and it's that experience, and also the fact that I grew up never being able to go to as many Packer games as I wanted to.
Yep.
Because like from elementary school to high school, I only had ever attended preseason and a few training camp games. And then I attended one regular season game, which I loved saying. It was during Aaron Rodgers out for the year because of his how was it? Anthony Barr's injury, isn't that?
Yeah, the collarbone
injury. And we had Brett Hundley at backup quarterback. We love Brett Hundley. And I actually ended up going to the December 23rd or 24th Packers-Vikings game at Lambeau Field. Cold, foot of snow on the ground. We ended up losing that game 16-0 to the Vikings. Yeah. My key memory is the fact that I kept chanting for third stringer Joe Callahan to come into the game because I was sick and tired of watching Brett Hundley not be able to complete a pass or just run around in the pocket. The older Packer fans who were drunk around me absolutely loved me. And unfortunately, I talked so much and screamed so much that the lovely couple who was sitting right in front of me directly got up and left.
Oh, man.
But also, I think it was the fact that it was
third quarter.
We're down. Yeah, it was freezing. We were losing by a lot. And it's like, by that point, yeah.
So that's the beautiful thing about being in Green Bay now, like you mentioned, because I wasn't originally born here and raised here. So I understand how cool and how special it is and the opportunity you have to just get a ticket last minute.
Oh yeah, just to always attend and go.
It's not as big of a risk either. You're not buying 6 months out where you don't know what's going to be happening in the season.
The only stuff that I've ever like for certain specific games is where I'm like, no, buy 6 months out. The only 2 games that I've ever bought one game I've bought in like 6 months out in advance was the 2023 Packers versus Chiefs game at Patrick Mahomes' first ever game at Lambeau Field, in which I said to myself, no matter if the Packers are good or bad, I'm banking on Patrick Mahomes playing at Lambeau Field, which is going to be, it's like Tom Brady playing at Lambeau Field. You're going to want to see it. And I ended up dropping still, I only dropped like, I think $170 on that game.
Yeah. That
And
doesn't surprise me.
and I'm like, to see one of the, we're going to say this because Patrick Mahomes is number 2 greatest all time, probably right behind Tom Brady. I'm like, and to see him play, and guess what? The Packers ended up winning that game.
Beautiful
And
game. Such
it was a
great
beautiful game. It was, I think that was the one game in which I didn't really film as much or take as many photos during the game or tweet it out, just because I was so much in awe because the snow was slightly fluttering down before the game. And it was kind of just like you were in it. Also, that was Taylor Swift being there,
Yes,
which I think is the only time she's ever been this far up north in Wisconsin, like ever. Because that was all my, like, is Taylor being there with Simone Biles and them being up in the booth. And that whole game was just like very enjoyable front to back. And, you know, I could say that's probably up there as one of my just favorite games I've attended, in which I want to say to this point now, I've attended 16 regular season games for the Packers. So I'm getting up there. I'm not, it is a chunk, but also it's like, as I said, going by yourself, you have a lot more opportunity to attend the games and do so forth and spray money. And you got to think there's only 8 home games during a season. And even then, like this past year, I didn't attend the Vikings or Lions games because those tickets were crazy. And also,
whole package makes it. Yeah.
I kind of was like, do I really think they're going to pull one out? And I was like, I'd rather save it. And even then, even for the home like closer against the Bears, I was like, no, I didn't even trust the fact that I was like, it's the Bears, but also at the same time, we're not riding high off losing to the Vikings.
Right.
And even then, those ticket prices were not the best. And I was like, maybe they come up push.
Yeah, you gotta ride the like prices too. I mean, you're in college, man. You like,
oh, that's the other thing. It's like I do in college, and it's only during like the March of the season where I spend all my money from August to like December, and then throughout like the rest of the year, it's like, oh, I go to a few things, and then my other big purchase is attending the Packers tent sale, which is what I did last year, which that was absolutely great and fantastic. And that's where I got all my clothes, a whole bunch of gear and whatever. And that's where
I think that's where I started following. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't use TikTok a lot, but I think I signed up for it right around tent season time. And I think one of your TikTok popped up for me on the tent sale.
Yeah, that's a lot of people tell me that that's where they were like, oh, know me off that video. Or I heard a lot of my draft coverage from last year ended up in a lot of people's For You pages, or including normally a lot I get progress from or like big fluctuation in followers or views is during training camp.
Yeah.
For which I said growing up, I'm like, you have all the main, this is where like I started first doing content where I'm like, you have all the mainstream people there who are doing it, tweeting and whatever. And I'm like, why is no one from the fan side tweeting on their side or posting like, hey, this is what's kind of happening or so forth, or getting like a different point of view, which I thought was interesting, in which even for them just posting online, and I'm like, I want someone who would want to say this or be vocal. And truthfully, how I post my content is who I am. And I am often it's more or less, especially with the fact that I'm a business marketing major, I'm like, people love people who are authentic. I like your stuff because you're authentic with how you say it and how you interview people. And that's how a lot of people like it in today's society. They want people who are authentic and genuine. And that's kind of how I structure my content to be. It's like, these are my thoughts. This is kind of how I see things. And that's where I put to a point where I'm not going to be oblivious and play such a huge character online completely. I mean, sometimes I will push the limits, especially with us getting rid of Aaron Jones last year and once again losing to the 49ers in the playoffs. Those kind of broke me a little. But to other points of certain things, I'm like, that's where I hear from people I meet sometimes online, or people I meet that's just like, oh, I've seen stuff. I was like, you are exactly who you are online. And I'm like,
it's perfect.
Yeah, that's who I am. That's
right.
I'm a little weird, I would say, very interesting, but like you can't really forget, as a lot of people would say.
Yeah. But you do produce so much good stuff, and I think it takes someone like a special breed of someone to be comfortable enough to film content like that without like toying the line of being like obscene too. Like you do a really good job of like capturing the moments and
Well,
making
that's
people feel that moment without being like over the top and that extra like annoying influencer line, if you will.
Oh yeah, no, that's kind of where I learned, because when I started first posting content in late 2022, I was kind of like, let's just see how this goes and posting stuff, and it was kind of finding the confidence with some of it, because I was like, let's just post this here, and I look back at some of that, and I'm like, oh, it's a little weird or strange, and I think it just took a level of, you know, being more true and just being like, okay, I've seen enough of the comment section to know how people think and like about me.
Yeah.
And to the point where I tell people, I'm like, it takes a lot to get under my skin, or you're gonna have to come up with something very new to just like the amount of comments of you're bald or any jokes about any character I look like. I'm
Right.
like, guys,
Let's get
think of
something. Let's
something.
get a new bit here.
The hate comments and
Yeah.
the disagreements and so forth underneath my stuff are always kind of just funny to peek a look at, or at the very least, I always forget sometimes too, is when I comment or like something underneath some stuff, some people can see that and they're like, oh, we didn't know you like this, or oh, there's your comment there. And I'm like, oh, I forget that people like, and I
Right.
feel it's the same thing with posting on any social media. And, I've been taking somewhat a chillax break recently, in which I was kind of like, let me take a break. I had to focus on myself and focusing more on the school aspect and so forth. But with
For
the
sure.
draft coming to Green Bay and everything, I'm looking forward to posting more, especially with the day of the draft, in which I won't not only know that I will be posting stuff, but I already know the amount of people that are going to be there, which is going to be just insane.
It's
I
gonna
mean,
be
I'm already
wild.
looking at people posting stuff being like, here, this is my event the day before, the night before the draft.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to look at here? How is this time scheduled? Or is it going to be me? Hey, I'll meet you here for 30 minutes, have fun at your event, and then go skip to the next one completely.
Yeah, it's
Or
gonna
just
be
be like,
wild.
hey, and I'm just like, for the people who just announced, and for people who haven't even announced stuff yet, I'm like, I understand there's some resortment to the fact that it's Green Bay, Wisconsin, and some people are like, do I really want to go to Green Bay, Wisconsin? Shout out Pat McAfee. Um, but I know it's the draft. It's going to be very unique. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I went to the draft the 2 years. It was in Chicago for 2015 and 2016. And one of those years, it was amazing, enjoyable. The other year, it rained out and was not as
Oof.
fun. And I'm really hoping that does not happen here,
Fingers
because
crossed.
that would make everyone just say, that's why I should have not been here. It's such terrible weather. And my one wish that I do have, same thing with Mark saying, I want it to snow, because one, atmosphere wise, absolutely amazing. Two, it'd be very funny to see all the people who came out from the West Coast be like, I need to buy winter gear,
Right.
and
Everyone's just
be
gonna be
layered
bundled
up
up.
to hell and back.
Yeah.
And just you'll see from the crowd being like, okay, this person's from the Midwest versus you've never been
Right.
out before in like
Dude,
40-degree weather.
even if it doesn't snow, you're gonna see people bundled up like crazy just because it's
Oh,
if
absolutely.
it's 50 degrees outside, you're gonna see people
It's
from Green
going to
Bay.
be cold, and
Yeah.
people are going to be just, and that's where I'm like, dude, I wonder how some of the players are going to come out on the stage completely being like, are they going to be in full suit, or are they going to be in like warm weather gear?
Yeah.
Because
It's gonna be so you went to it in Chicago.
in
Was it
both
like
years,
shoulder to shoulder packed with people, or how was the
I mean,
experience there?
it was over, I forget, it's where the Park or the Bean is, and it was a lot more wide and adjunct, and a lot more of it was like the first year they had actually traveled to the draft in 2015 and decided they wanted to place it, and obviously that was in New York. And from what I remember, because I was young, I was in, that was like, I think it was fifth grade, sixth grade.
Sure.
They had a lot more stuff like spread out. So a lot more like the actual activities and so forth were spread. And I say it was a lot more room, but the more towards you got the stage and so forth, it was somewhat more packed. And my favorite memory from that is the Skittles station they had, where you could fake bean in a Skittles bath. Just for the sake of it. And then they had all like the generic stuff which you see constantly now, especially with like the combine, where it's all like the mannequins with the jerseys. You can like
Yep.
fake, oh, I'm a player. Same with all the big helmets. I'm just trying to remember if there's anything else. I didn't remember anything. And they had like a few unique stations that you could. They had their Madden station for EA and other stuff like that. But it was kind of just more or less this was the first year they were traveling, so I don't even think they like knew like what they wanted as much. And I think for the stuff they wanted to add for 2016, I want to say that was the year it rained out. They just stuff was not as open as I can remember.
Sure.
But both times it was a very cool experience. And I've also done the combine twice. I've attended down there. I attended in 2017 and also last year. And the difference from then is just like it's a lot more people, and they actually like it seems to be a lot more because it used to be when they first started like free flowing, like, hey, we're not telling you to do this and this. As for whereas last year was like, no, here are the things you can do here, here, and here. And it was a lot more like all put into place strategically, and it looked all refined, and the lines and so forth were a little crazy, but it looked like they knew what they had, knew what they wanted. And I was like, oh, this is actually like really cool. So yeah, I mean, I see the plans they posted online, and I could take a guess what they could possibly have. My main thing is just going to be the fact that towards the stage, it's probably going to be completely packed.
Yeah.
Probably elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder. It's going to be probably a little insane. But I think as for some of the other stuff, it's going to be unique. And yeah, I think truthfully, it's going to be a great experience.
I'm excited to get down there, and I'm a little anxious because I don't like being around. I mean, Packer games are fine, but I think this is going to be 500,000 people, 600,000 people.
It's going to be a lot of people over 3
days. You're going to feel like you're a sardine, so that's my big concern. Is I don't want to be too.
Well, another thing to simply say, I'm glad that I'm 6'5" and tall because I'll be able to see over the crowd. And my only concern is I want to have it be where I'm standing over there, and some person's behind me is going to be like, "Hey, can you?"
You got to expect that if you're in a crowd.
I'm like, man. It's going to be mosh, but yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be tightly packed. That's where I'm kind of like, maybe if it's somewhat not great weather, not as many people. But truthfully, I want as many people to show just to be like, even in a city like Green Bay, that is a small town for over 120,000 people, it is still willing and can host big events like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I truthfully I can't wait. I mean, we're 3 weeks out, so
just tell them sucks to suck if that happens, dude. They're in a big crowd. You're tall. That's just life. But no, I think it's gonna be. It's crazy that it's only 3 weeks away. It's gonna be a zoo. So you mentioned you've been to 16 games now. The Chiefs game being up there is one of your favorites. What would you say is the favorite game that you've been to?
So. It might just have to be the fact that I was glad to be one of the few thousands fans to watch Aaron Rodgers' last game against the Lions.
Oh,
like ever as a Packer. I would like to say I was also one of the last fans out of that stadium because I may have not like dragged behind. And after the game was over, at Sunday Night Football and the NBC crew did their interview with Jamal Williams, and all the Lions fans were doing Lambeau leaps, and I think I was the only Packer fan there. I mean, shit. I had Amon-Ra St. Brown Lambeau leap right in front of me, and I got video footage of that and was like, man, this is really great right now. I am really enjoying this. This is a perfect way to start off 2023 with the Lions doing Lambeau. I'm like, this is great. And it was, I'd say at the very least, like a part of me wanted to like kind of be Aaron Rodgers' last game just to be like, for the sake of, hey, I got to witness his last ever. Technically, I got to witness his last ever win on the road and his last ever win at home, which was because it was the Bears on the road. Then it was the Vikings, which that blowout game, very fun to watch, especially that Mason Crosby kick that was like 57 or 58 yards. That was amazing. And then it was that Lions game in which he lost. And say, like that 3 game span, I'd probably say is up there pretty solidly. But I'm trying to think. I mean, I guess Jordan Love's comeback at home for his first ever home game at Lambeau Field as a starter is probably up there too, to say the very least, because that was. I remember at halftime, people were saying they wanted to go, and I'm like, it's only 17-0. I'm like, there's still, and that's where I tell people completely. I'm like, I'm also a fan where I'm like, you're paying all this money to attend the game. I understand beating traffic is important and getting into your cars. I'm like, but you never know. Yeah. And also, why would you want to stay and watch it all? And So that's where I will always stay until the final whistle blows. I've had that always completely. That's how I stand by the mantra of going to any games, unless it is without certain that I need to go. I'm like, there's no rush for me. Also, I say I'm by myself. There's no real rush for me to leave or get anywhere. Right. So the great thing is I park a mile down away from the stadium, and I'm like, and technically the people that sell the parking at the houses, as long as you're out of their yard, even if it's like a late night game by midnight, they don't always care. I've only ever had it once where the guy was like, "Oh yeah, I was in a wondering and actually call you," and I'm like, "But you pay, and as long as you're out of there by a time, they're not."
After this, after we get done recording, I'll have to tell you where to park for free because I have good free parking that I never pay. Dude, I'll tell you once we get done recording because you're a college kid. You can't be paying for parking.
I mean, I only pay $10 to $20.
Yeah, but still, man, that's a brat or something, you know?
Yeah, well, I don't do concessions at I
Smart.
Technically I spend all my money towards the seat, and I get free water. I get my free Quick Trip donut in the atrium, and I hit up the one water fountain that's down there off each floor. And I think I only spend money. I spent money for the Saints game because I was posting stuff, and then the last time I bought concessions was for preseason, which whenever they're posting something, whenever there's new food, which I mean, they did all the concession renovations over the 2023 summer. That's where I was like, okay, let me try some of these. But for the most part, I'd say load up on food before the game, drinks and so forth, because I don't want to be paying $14 for a beer. I'm like,
I'm with you,
it's
man.
not necessary. And some of the food, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but also like $10, $8 cheese curds. I'm like, I think I'll pass.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And yeah,
I'm with you 100%. Hey, it's Ben again. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to give you this week's word of the week or phrase of the week so you can enter the giveaway. Before I do, I once again want to say thank you to Nicolay Law for making these giveaways possible. I know I probably sound like a parrot when I'm saying that, but I really am super appreciative of all that they do to make these possible. So if you are injured, get Nicolay. That kind of brings me to the phrase of the week. This week's phrase of the week is get Nicolay. It's part of their slogan, so make sure you put that in the phrase if you are entering the giveaway. If you've never entered the giveaway before, you might be wondering how you do that. You can find in the show notes or in the comment section, they'll say something like giveaway link or giveaway, and it'll be a Google Forms link. Click that link, fill it out, and when it asks you for the phrase of the week, type in get Nicolay. Thank you once again for everyone who supports, everyone who's watching, everyone who does it. And thank you as well to Nicolay Law for making it all possible. So if you are injured, once again, if you're injured, get Nicolay. All right. Thanks so much, guys. And let's get back to our episode with Caden. So you're mentioning that you got to meet Watson, you got to meet Love, you go to training camp, you get a chance to like kind of bump elbows with some players. Out of all the players that you've had a chance to meet, who would you say is your favorite?
Well, I can say at the very least that meeting Jordan for the first time in 2023 was, well, technically I've met him, now we're speaking 1, 2, I think 4 or 5 times now. And I've also ran into Ronica twice off of just not even in the NFL season, but just off chance, which I think is very funny.
That's funny.
But even for then, I met Jordan the summer of 22, when it was him and AJ at the Kenosha Kingfish game, where I know you've probably seen the clip of AJ Dillon trucking the mascot and so forth. That was from that game where they were doing you bought the tickets to the game, you got to meet them along with a few other Packer alumni. And so that was my first time meeting him. They were only doing photos, which I was like, that's fine. And I had thinking nothing about it. And after the 22 season, and Aaron Rodgers was that his last season as Packer. After the Lions game, I was like, no, I'm thoroughly off the Aaron Rodgers boat. I want it to be Jordan. And I knew immediately, I was like, I'm investing everything into this man behind me. Just based on the fact that I was like, I'm fully banking on the fact that I think the Packers could possibly do it again. And I remember posting and telling my friends, I'm like, I'm done with Rodgers. I don't want him back on the team. I'm fine to let him go for all this money. I think it was like one of the few, because I remember all that offseason was so the back and forth. And do we want to bring him back? Will it be so much money? It was, oh my God, Twitter and X was terrible. And I remember completely just being like, nope, I'm on Jordan Love's boat completely. So the first opportunity to meet him and sign him was through Waukesha. So I ended up paying a little penny, did his autograph, also Christian Watson's autograph, and also just get the photo with both of them, which I'm like, I'm going to do this now because I already know for my faith and how my gut feeling is. I don't know if it'll be the chance to do that again.
Right.
Luckily, that following December, he held the annual
the kettle signing.
Kettle, yep, for Salvation Army.
Yep.
And so I ended up getting a jersey signed by him. So now I have 2 jerseys signed by him. And at the very least, I have the first one I have, which I'm probably never going to sell. And I have a backup in case if I'm ever like, or Burgess, I need to get rid of something,
right.
I can. And then I did this. Well, technically, I could say I did it. I met him randomly off their training camp because he went in a back door one day, and I didn't even realize it was fully him. And I was like, oh, he walked the opposite way. And then it was once again through the Salvation Army again this year, which I ended up getting a ball signed and ended up giving the ball to one of my dad's cousins, Nick, who's a huge diehard Packer fan and who was always like, who kept nagging me throughout training camp, being like, Caden, can you give me an autograph from a player or someone? And I was like, oh, do I really? And then I just completely zoned out of it. And then Christmas time came and I was like, it's like, you know what I think would be really funny if I say, hey, sorry I didn't get you any player autographs. Here's the starting quarterback's autograph. And so I ended up figuring something out with his wife, and he absolutely loved it. But I could say, like, out of all the players I met, Jordan Love is for sure one of the, like, up there. I've offhandedly met Ronica a few times, once by accidentally walking through a grocery store and being like, aren't you Ronica Stone? Oh, and also at Rasheed Walker's bowling event back in October, which that was a very cool thing that he held. They both were there, and I ended up talking with both of them, which I thought was offhandedly just asking. I asked him one about what are your thoughts on everyone calling you Pookie? Ronica did not seem too delighted by that. That was my one comment I said to him, and Jordan smirked and laughed. I also, funnily enough, had asked him at the Salvation Army signing in December, hey, and this was like early December, what are your thoughts about people saying that you're a Toyotathon merchant and so forth, and that you play well during Toyotathon? He just gave me a weird look like, oh, I don't really know. And then literally the following Monday posted I'm sponsored by Toyota. And I'm like, so you did know. It's okay. That's fine. But those are probably by far the two. I've had a few others where I've gone to a few events. I met Jordy Nelson, as I said, Rashawn Gary and Romeo Dobbs. That was really cool. I've met Mike Daniels before, Aaron Jones, Kenny Clark. I could say the one player who I like, if I had the choice, I haven't met Aaron Rodgers ever. I've had a few friends that met him. It'd be a really cool experience. But the one guy who I've always been like, I've wanted to meet since I was like growing up. When people say their favorite player growing up, like Packer fans wise, they're like, my favorite player was Aaron Rodgers. And I'd say I was like a huge Rodgers fan, but by far my favorite player growing up was Clay Matthews. I mean, my number on my football team when growing up was 52 because of Clay Matthews. Right. I loved Clay Matthews. I loved his luscious locks. Absolutely loved him to death. I was like, I want to play like Clay. He's just a monster and a freak. So that's one person I'm still like kind of hoping up for, being like one day to be like, that's probably like the top tier of my bucket list. Cause then at that point I'm like, okay, I've done pretty well. And then we'll see from there, following wise of who I meet. Then,
well, I'm sure you might see him start popping up in more
just
sessions, and as he's getting further and further out of the league, and I mean, he's dipping his toe now more back in the Wisconsin side of things. So
yeah, that's what I was hoping with the fact that he was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this past fall.
Sure.
And I was like, to the Packer Hall of Fame, more specific. And I was like, oh, maybe nothing that I've heard specifically or anything like that. So I was like, okay, I guess it's fine. But I know the opportunity will come eventually, or I'll just offhandedly meet him and be in just utter shock and be like, I don't know what to do.
You never know in Green Bay, man. You never know where you're gonna run people.
The amount of times I've ran into players just offhandedly. I mean, one early morning, I went to the Fresh Time off down the street from Lambeau Field, ran into Zach Tom before training camp day.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, at the mall, I ran into Bo Melton and he was wearing his hood up. And I jokingly said, I said, what's up, Bo? And he said, hey, man. And he's like trying to stay hidden.
That's always the best because you're in the mall and everyone's just kind of looking casual
away from each other. No one's
and
looking.
then you got like the guy like this.
No, he has his hood up and he's literally, I could tell by his frizzy hair and how he looks. I was like, that's Bo Melton. And I just said, hey. And he was like, oh, hey, and told him to have a good day. He said, thanks. And we watch our past ways. And I'm like, it's always that funny thing because, yeah, Green Bay is a small town. You will run to the same people or see the same faces. And that applies too with the Packer players and just being out in public or so forth. And I don't think they always fully get recognized. But for the times that they do, I think it's always just funny, even from some of my other friends who are like, oh, yeah, I ran into AJ Dillon at a different grocery store at the very least, or I ran into this person who was in downtown. And I'm like, it's just.
You just never know. I ran into Jordan Love at Target. We're just walking by each other, and I just, hey, Jordan, hey, got in his Mercedes and left. But it's just like, yeah, you just never know where you're going to bump into people being in Green Bay. And
you don't think about it. You're like, oh, yeah, they are just like.
It kind of feels like when you run into a teacher outside of school, you're like, you're not supposed to be here. Like, you're so used to seeing them in one place that it feels weird to kind of see them out of that place. But they're just, normal people doing their normal stuff. So now that you've been here for a little bit, and you came to town a little bit, but now that you're here, I am curious, what are your 3 favorite restaurants? Not chain restaurants.
I mean, I haven't explored as much.
I mean, you're a college kid, so I mean, that's part of it too.
I think at the very least I could say Pizza Ranch is a no-go, unfortunately. Any of the pizza places up here, I am not the biggest fan of. Even for just regular tavern, even with the Chicago-style place down Lombardi,
that place is not that great. No,
it is not good. I truthfully I've only done a few spots. I could say Angelina's is really good Italian food. That's a solid place. And also I went there because Jordan went there. And also for the signed menus. The cheesesteak place that's all Star Wars themed. They're really nice. Rebellion. They're really cool. I love that restaurant. I could say at the very least though, I do wish out of anything in Green Bay, because there's been so much renovation, so much industry and stuff popping up. I am begging them to add one fast food place, please. I need a Portillo's up here,
dude. I would be all about that. I love me some Portillo's.
That is the one thing that I'm constantly begging and wishing I'm in the mood for up here.
Dude, I don't blame you one bit. That place, if someone listening has not been to that place, it is massive. And they serve so many different things, and it's delicious.
It's Chicago style hot dogs. It's the
dip
sandwiches. Completely. It's all the stuff. It's all the good stuff. Especially the fact that I'm like, who wouldn't want a shake that has a huge slice of cake in it? That's peak Midwest just fatty food.
I agree. I thought they were only in the Chicago area, but there's one over by Minnesota,
there's also a few in Arizona. So they're there's some that are spread out, but they're mainly concentrated in Illinois. And that's where I'm like, that's out of everything we've been adding up here, all the additional restaurants like Dave's Hot Chicken, we have even more Panda Expresses and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm like, I feel like at the very least of my dignity, just show up to one of the district or town hall meetings and be like, we need to figure this out. We need to get a Portillo's up here.
Hey, maybe that's an after college plan for you. Just start a franchise here.
Oh yeah, obviously. That's what I'm saying. It would do so well. We need a good hot dog place up here. I'm desperately.
I dig it. I know we've been talking for a minute, so I'm gonna ask you so I don't take up too much more of your time. I'm going to ask you, I got some hot questions here, some quick rapid fire questions meant to kind of trip you up a little bit. Won't over explain. I'll just kind of get into it. So first one, if you could sit down and have a conversation with any person associated with the Green Bay Packers, alive or dead, I'm going to exclude Vince Lombardi. Who would you choose and why?
It would have to be the I forget his name. He does the financing and works out all the contracts for the Packers. It's not Bill Russell. I'm blanking on his name so hard. Oh my god.
Are you talking about Russ? Russ Ball?
Yes. Oh, Russ Ball.
You'd sit down and just pick his brain on it?
I've always had, because we know all this contract information, and I have never heard that man have like an actual like good sit down long like interview thoroughly and asking all like the important questions about how do you figure this out financially, because that's where everyone says and makes the jokes online about him being so good at figuring out these deals for these players. And I think it's kind of the fact that it's like, instead of hearing from a player perspective, I want to hear someone from like business perspective, right, like that. So I would have to say, like, I know it's a really random like pick and pull.
Dude, I love that you went that route though, because I think that is one, you're the first person that's ever dropped Russ Ball for the answer there. And I did like a show similar to this years and years back where I did 50 episodes. No one pulled Russ Ball on that answer. So you're kind of a trailblazer on that one, but that's a great answer on that. I think that's a super interesting thing that would be to hear how he breaks down contracts would be.
I mean, he's been with the organization for a decent time too. So to be like, hey, you've figured out Aaron Rodgers' contract for that 3 years, $150 million, and then also that Jordan Love contract, which made him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history for about like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, the way he can add fluff to it and just the way they finagle things is
yeah, because that's where everyone adds it, and that's where everyone, especially with a few people on Twitter that dive into the contracts and how all that works. I'm like, yeah, I think it'd be interesting to hear from him, which I don't think he ever speaks to people or the media, or no one ever has to intrigue to be like, hey, anything like that. I think it'd just be interesting to hear from him. So there's my answer.
I love it. If you could watch any game again for the first time, having the same emotions, feelings, you're watching it all again for the first time as you're having all the same feelings as if you're watching it again for the first time. I did a terrible job. Which game would you choose?
I think you'll like my answer to this. It's a game in which I regret that I was forced to not continue to watch. In the 2015 season, everyone knows about the Ford Miracle everyone knows about that. I was in middle school. I was in elementary school, and no, that was 6th grade, middle school. And the game, Thursday night football, running late into like, my mom's like, you have school in the morning, you have to go to bed. It is third quarter, we're down by a few scores. My mom's like, go to sleep. They're not coming back to win the game. And I remember being like, okay. I go to sleep. I wake up the following morning. The first thing my mom says to me is, I am so sorry. And I'm like, what's wrong? And I look up and I'm like, I missed probably one of the most iconic moments in Packer history because you told me to go to sleep early because I needed to get up the following next day for school. And from that point forward, my mom, I truthfully said, I am never going to sleep until the Packers game hits 0-0 on the clock.
At least you can always hold that over her head now forever.
Oh no, she hates. I bring it up to her every single time. She hates it so much, and I'm like, I love saying that to my friends, and that's a missed opportunity. So yeah, if I had to choose like one game, I wish I would have not gone to sleep. But if I had to choose a game in which I wish to relive the happy, positive emotions, I'd probably say the Cowboys Packers 2016 game. For how I was losing my mind and was like, yeah, Jared Cook holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah,
to say the very least.
I mean, flawless answers on both of those. If you could attend any game in the history of the Green Bay Packers, excluding a championship, so no Ice Bowl, Super Bowls, anything like that, which game are you choosing and why?
It would probably be one of those two games.
Really?
It would probably be one of those two games.
That makes
those are unique to me. I have special memories to those. I think an additional one would probably be maybe Packers Cardinals in 2015 with the Jeff Janis Hail Mary. I feel like that would be a cool one to attend to. Or I guess I could give like an obscurity, would be like maybe one of the early days and go see, wish I saw like a Paul Hornung
right.
or a bar star type of guy play. But I think for my era, and if I was alive, I think those two that I gave for previous answer would be those.
I
So
dig it. What is your most controversial take as a Packers fan? And I'll give context to this. Mine, for example, is I think if you sell more than like half of your season tickets, they should be revoked. I think you should have to do them. So what is your controversial take as a Packers fan?
I truthfully outright hate the gold package, and I do not like. It's not to say I don't like. I don't have much deep respect for some of those Packer fans
I'm with you.
that are down in Milwaukee who sell their stuff on a yearly basis
Yep.
through and through. And I haven't made it as vocal online, but I truthfully don't have as much respect. The same thing to some of the resellers that I have on like you buy something and you're just gonna upcharge it and not like appreciate it and say at the very least sell it to someone off. I'm even for some of the stuff that's like signed or anything. I always see it and I'm like, I guess that makes sense. But I think hot take between there. I think the biggest one is I just think we should just get rid of the gold package completely. I understand the importance of history behind it. I just don't like
Yeah.
it. And
There's
I
too
think with
many
the
like
Packers,
bad offenders on it for sure.
well, and I mean with the Packers coming out being like, oh, we're now starting to have like place enforcement of if you were selling your tickets every year, we're gonna kick you off the list. I do like that a lot. I
Yep.
understand people's
That
things
surprised
are,
me a lot.
well, we pay for our tickets, so we should do whatever. And that's where I'm like, I get that, but also you got to understand you're making money off betting the Packers are going to be good every year when it should be, hey, you should be going to games. Or that's where I wish there was, like, I know with certain teams they have like marketplaces that are just for fans, only fans based off zip code and so forth. And I'm like, I would love if the Packers were to have something like that
Right.
more specifically. But then I understand that, well, we have fans that do this already and so forth. And I'm like, but I feel like it'd make it simpler and easier if it's coming from you for you to be more fan centric, which I've enjoyed that over the last few years. They have been more fan heavy. They've worked their efforts, especially with Packers everywhere. And then with how their social media team has been, that they've been focusing a lot more on the fans, which I appreciate because I feel like it's a fan sport. The fans support the team and do everything and so forth. Even though I do think fans a decent amount of time are wrong on certain things and should let the organization do it.
Yeah.
I understand we haven't picked a wide receiver in the first round in forever.
Yep.
Maybe this year's the change.
I hear that every year, man. I hear that every year.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just hot take wise, I just don't think the gold package
I
should
think that's
exist.
a solid one. Last one here for you. The Packers don't have a traditional owner. But let's say you wake up tomorrow and you are the owner. You have full executive say over everything.
Oh.
What is the first decision you are making as the owner?
The first thing I'd probably say as the owner at the very least, there's so many things you could obviously do.
While you're thinking, I'll tell you Big B's. Big B said that he would allow people to film practice. That was his.
Of course he said that. Why would he not? Of course he would say that. Oh, of course that'd be his answer.
Which I laughed pretty hard at because that's a pretty funny answer.
I'd probably say the first like generic business move, I'd probably fix the ticket packaging and get rid of gold packages and just be like to all the people that are there, I'd be like, unless because they at this you gotta think they are a multi-billion-dollar organization. They know who you are, they know internet connection wise, they have cameras at the stadiums, they know who's selling their tickets and attending and not attending
For sure.
games. They 100% do. And that's
Yep.
why they're doing this recently. I think that's an easy thing. If I had to make like a team personnel move, I am going to do the thing that every single person is begging for. I will draft a wide receiver in the first round. Just to get it off the backs of every single fan.
There you go.
Because even if the guy doesn't play well, I could say, well, you guys wanted me to draft a wide receiver in the first round, even if it's like a reach. Just to get it off the back, to be like,
I think
here, I'm happy.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good answer. So where can people find you online? You create a lot of good content. I've seen stuff on TikTok, and I know you're on Twitter.
Anywhere, any socials. You can follow me at Caden Sonella, CADEN SUNILA, no spaces.
Okay. I'll put it in the show notes too, in the comments or whatever, so people can.
Yeah, it's all just generic Socials,
Twitter,
first name, last
Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all the same.
TikTok, everything. Yep.
And that is going to do it for this episode with Caden. I want to say thank you so much to Caden for taking the time. It was so cool on my end to sit down and get to capture the story and get to talk with him. Like I said, this happened before the NFL draft, so I had the opportunity to run into him at the NFL draft. And because we recorded this episode, it felt like I was bumping into an old friend again, which was really fun. I also want to say thank you to Nicolay Law for all the support they provide and for sponsoring this episode. If you want to be on an episode of Tales from the Tundra, you can find the link on how to apply in either the show notes or the comments below from where you're watching. My name is Ben, and thank you so much for taking the time to either listen to the show or watch it, however you're consuming it. I can't thank you all enough. And until next time, until next week, go Pack Go.